Hi guys, I am Bray and welcome to my channel. Before the starting a video, please like and subscribe my channel. The first model of Russia's new stealth bomber is expected to be completed at some point this year, a development expected to lead toward additional prototypes and testing over the next several years. This timeframe, should it come to fruition, aligns the emergence of the FUGUE with the USB-21, which is also being completed and prepared for its first test flights and early operational assessments. Can it rival the USB-21 or the Chinese H-20? Those may not be answerable questions at the moment, but there do appear to be some similarities between the FUGUE and the USB-2 or even B-21. Of course, the FUGUE-Da's horizontal blended wing body shape is to be expected for these kinds of stealthy platforms. Yet available renderings of the FUGUE show rectangular shaped inlets aligned with or somewhat parallel to the top of the fuselage. Looking at the back of the B-21 and the FUGUE on available images show some potential design similarities, as neither model has anything that looks like a protruding external exhaust or visible area from which heat can dissipate. Have one or both of these stealth bombers been engineered with any kind of cooling technology or exhaust management system to manage thermal signature? While little or nothing is known about the B-21 or the FUGUE in some respects, both appear slated to fire air-launched cruise missiles, weapons that clearly enable a wider range of attack options. According to a TASS report from last year, the FUGUE is expected to deploy Kh-102 nuclear-tipped stealthy cruise missiles, and a number of newer hypersonic designs including derivatives of the Kh-47M2, the TASS story writes. This brings up yet another parallel. The USB-21 is slated to fly armed with the new long-range standoff weapon, a nuclear-capable air-launched cruise missile intended to hold targets at risk at greater standoff ranges to reduce the risk of destruction by enemy air defenses. As for fuselage shape, the USB-21 does appear to have more rounded and indented inlets when compared with the B-2 or the Russian FUGUE. The Tupolev FUGUE. The FUGUE is intended to serve as a long-range, low-observable strategic bomber for the Russian Air Force, but within the broad definitions of these terms lies a vast spectrum of actual combat capability that won't fully manifest until the aircraft enters service. In other words, analysis of the FUGUE is limited by the fact that this bomber doesn't really exist yet, and as such, it may be subject to both intentional propaganda and unintentional misconception in open source outlets. According to TASS, a media outlet owned by the Russian government, the new bomber will utilize a flying wing design much like America's B-2 Spirit and forthcoming B-21 Raider. It will be a subsonic platform with heavy payload capabilities that will include cruise missiles, precision bombs, and hypersonic weapons. To date, Russia has completed construction on a full-size wooden mock-up of the aircraft, as well as full and scale models of potential cockpit layouts. A number of smaller composite models have also been built for wind tunnel testing. Last month, Russia announced work on their first prototype aircraft with plans to begin test flights in 2023, making their 2027 in-service goal possible, if still unlikely. How stealthy will it be? Russia is on the extremely exclusive list of nations to develop a stealth aircraft program domestically and put it into service, sharing that distinction with only the United States and China. However, not all stealth competitors are created equal. Russia's stealth technology is widely considered to be lagging behind its American and even Chinese competition. The nation's only operational stealth fighter, the Sukhoi Su-57, is likely the least stealthy fifth-generation fighter in service today, and the outlook isn't much better for the FUGUE. Stealth, of course, isn't a single technology, but rather a whole slew of overlapping technologies, production methodologies, and combat tactics, all combining to limit or prevent the detection of an aircraft flying through contested airspace. In the 21st century, stealth aircraft must take pains to limit their radar return, mask, the immense heat produced by their engines susceptible to infrared detection and targeting, and include some degree of electronic warfare or jamming capabilities. The FUGUE leverages a flying wing design, similar to Northrop's B-2 Spirit and forthcoming B-21 Raider, for good reason. With few protruding wings or fins and no hard angles to reflect radar back at the transmitting array, the B-2 is likely one of the stealthiest aircraft in the sky today, capable of defeating even low-frequency radars stealth fighters often cannot. By following on this path, the FUGUE has a solid start. However, Russia's stealth is limited by its ability to mass-produce aircraft with the extremely tight production tolerances required of a stealth fighter or bomber. Seams between body panels can create a radar return just like an open weapons bay door can, which is how an American F-117 was shot down by a 1950s-era surface-to-air missile. Russia isn't unaware of its shortcomings in the stealth department, and as such, the nation's air warfare doctrine doesn't mirror America's reliance on defeating or delaying detection. While the US prioritizes stealth first, or at least close to first, in the development of these platforms, Russian engineers view stealth as just one of a number of important elements, and arguably not one worth prioritizing at the expense of more conventional goals regarding speed or maneuverability. In fact, statements already made in Russian state media suggest that the FUGUE may not be that stealthy at all, explaining the aircraft will use long-range munitions to carry out its mission without ever leaving the protective bubble of Russian air defense systems. Today, Russia's Air Force has received the powerful X-555 and X-101 long-range missiles that can fly 5,000 kilometers, 3,106 miles, which is why there is no more need for long-distance bombers. Vadim Kozulin, a professor at the Academy of Military Science in Moscow, told Kremlin-owned Russia Beyond. Now the strategic bomber can carry out its mission basically without leaving Russian borders and remaining under the protection of air defense systems. What kinds of weapons will the FUGUE carry? Reports of the anticipated payload capabilities of the FUGUE vary significantly from source to source, which may speak to a lack of internal communications within the Russian Ministry of Defense or a shift in design sometime between 2016 and today. Early reports claimed a 30-ton internal payload capacity, 60,000 pounds, while more recent ones claim an even more impressive 40 tons, 80,000 pounds. To put that payload into comparison with its competition, the forthcoming American stealth bomber, the B-21 Raider, is expected to carry just 30,000 pounds, while the in-service B-2 Spirit can carry 40,000. America's non-stealth bombers, the supersonic B-1B Lancer and long-serving B-52 Stratofortress, can carry 75,000 pounds and 70,000 pounds respectively. In other words, this new Russian stealth bomber is expected to be big. This comparatively large payload capacity may be why Russian officials have claimed their new bomber will exceed the capabilities of the B-21. Per Russian reports, the FUGUE will be capable of carrying a wide variety of conventional and nuclear ordnance. It's also expected to network with airborne drones in some way, though details about that effort remain scarce. Although the stealth of this bomber may be questionable, it remains likely that all of these munitions will be carried internally. Among the array of weapons available will be the latest hypersonic missiles Russia has in development. The first will undoubtedly be the Kinjal. Currently, the experimental model is being built. The demonstration model will be ready by 2023, a source in the Russian aircraft industry told Russia's state-owned TASS. The subsonic FUGUE will be armed with hypersonic weapons. Besides, its flight will be aided by drones. The Kh-47M Kinjal is an air-launched hypersonic ballistic missile with a claimed range of over 2,000 kilometers, about 1,243 miles, and a claimed top speed in excess of Mach 10, or about 7,672 miles per hour. The missile can carry either conventional or nuclear warheads, with a maximum nuclear Yield of about 500 kilotons, which is more than 30 times as powerful as the atomic bomb. Dropped on Hiroshima at the end of World War II. Because of the missile's blistering speed and ability to maneuver in flight, the Russian military claim that it's capable of defeating any U.S. air defense system in service. Notably, American defense officials similarly warn that today's air defense systems cannot intercept hypersonic weapons, lending credence to the supposed threat this missile poses to American targets. Last month, Russia announced the development of another air-launched weapon likely to find its way into the payload bay of the FUGUE, the Kh-95 long-range hypersonic missile. Does the FUGUE pose a real threat? Stealth bombers like the B-21 Raider and Russia's FUGUE offer a different kind of capability than stealth fighters, flying completely different mission sets than you'll find even among air-to-ground focused fighters like the F-35. The B-21 Raider, for instance, is expected to have global strike capabilities, the most advanced stealth technologies ever fielded, and a payload many multiples of that carried internally by fighters maintaining their stealth profile. Because of their specialized role, long-range bombers like these are often referred to as strategic bombers. Strategic bombers are tasked with flying deep into enemy territory where their targets are, you guessed it, strategic in nature. While an interdiction or fighter bomber might engage enemy targets on the battlefield, a strategic bomber flies medium to long-range missions to engage enemy infrastructure, hardened facilities, and military installations. Strategic bombers compromise a nation's ability to fight a war at the fundamental level. With that in mind, one might think the FUGUE poses the most potent threat to America of any Russian defense program short of their nuclear ICBMs, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Just how stealthy this bomber is remains to be seen, and in fact, the bomber may never even come to fruition at all. Russia's stagnating economy is hindered considerably by sanctions placed on the nation by the international community for aggressive acts around the world like the military annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the attempted assassination of a former Russian intelligence officer on UK soil in 2018. As a result, the nation is forced to pick and choose where to invest its military spending, often leaning toward publicity garnering doomsday weapons that create a perception of Russian military might, despite being unable to repair or field their lone aircraft carrier or to push other advanced programs off the chalkboard and onto the assembly line in any meaningful numbers. Russia's troubled history with stealth platforms and poor funding both suggest that Russia's claims that their forthcoming FUGUE will roll into production by 2027 are pretty questionable. When you consider Russia has also announced another stealth fighter in the checkmate and has still yet to establish funding for their standing order of Su-57s, it starts to look like Russia is doing little more than collecting plans for aircraft they hope to build someday. Further complicating matters for the FUGUE effort are new production Tu-160 Blackjacks, which are long-range supersonic bombers capable of carrying a whopping 88,000 pounds of weaponry while traveling at speeds in excess of Mach 2. If the FUGUE proves not to be all that stealthy, it seems unlikely that Russia would divert funding away from the Tu-160 effort to produce their flying wing in any significant numbers. For now, despite a full-sized wooden mock-up and talks of a prototype under construction, Russia's FUGUE exists as little more than another Russian paper plane. Whether or not it someday becomes more remains to be seen. Thanks for your attention. If you enjoy from this video, please like and subscribe. See you soon.